This is one of my favorite ways to quilt a quilt, especially a smaller quilt, with my walking foot. So we're gonna quilt these nice, kind of relaxed wavy lines. It's really easy, it's really forgiving. I typically start about an inch apart, but you can do them further apart, closer together, whatever you want to do for your quilt. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've got my stitch length at like 3, and I have my speed turned all the way up. Okay, so I'm just gonna get started. So I already have my first line here, and kind of what I like to do is, as I add more lines, I like to try to go in an opposite direction of what I've got. So like, for instance, here, I'm gonna kind of come towards this sort of curve and then come back away, and it's gonna give me this beautiful, like, almost a lava lamp looking, I don't know, pattern. You'll see what I mean as I add more lines. So to do this, I'm just feeding the quilt kind of wonky through the machine. So I'm just wiggling it gently instead of trying to feed it through the machine straight. And by doing it as kind of bigger movements, I'm getting more gentle curves. Okay, so see what I mean? Since I came back towards this point, you get kind of these undulating lines. And then I mix it up. I don't do that at every, spot, so that there's some variety. So let's do another one. So I'm going nice and gentle. If I was going like this, I would get really wonky looking lines. So by doing it a little more slowly, I'm getting these nice gentle curves. Kind of stopping every so often to readjust the quilt and also to readjust my hands. So you can see we're starting to get a nice little pattern going here. I'm doing my lines fairly far apart. I'll mix it up with a few places where they get closer. So here's a place where I'm going to kind of readjust my pattern. So I was really gentle with my movements here, and so it's looking a little more straight. And I'm going to compensate for that by doing kind of a more exaggerated curve just to, get the pattern a little more interesting. And then if I feel like I'm really not, because I'm trying to go pretty straight down my quilt, even though I am doing a wavy line. So every so often, maybe every, like, I don't know, depending on how big the quilt is, like 6 to 10 inches, I'll lay the quilt out flat and just make sure I'm not like really far out on one end. It can be helpful to look at both ends of your quilt. So I'm like, you know, I don't know, 4 inches in at the bottom. And I'm about the same at the top. So I'm not too worried that it's like super off in terms of the direction that I'm going down the quilt. And typically with this style of quilting, I do just go from one end to the other all in one direction, just to avoid too many puckers. But I realize if you're working on a much larger quilt, that would be a little bit more difficult. So anyways, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, like I said, this is one of my very favorite ways to quilt, especially a small quilt. It's really forgiving, and it's nice not having to do straight lines. I find it a little bit easier. So anyways, I hope you try it out.